Good day, everyone. Today we are going to discuss factoring the sum and difference of two cubes. Now, the objective of this lesson is to factor the sum and difference of two cubes. Okay, binomials like x cubed plus y cubed and x cubed minus y cubed, known as the sum and difference of two cubes, can be factored by the following steps. Step 1. Extract the cube roots. So we need to extract the cube roots of the first and last terms of the binomial factor. Step 2. Connect the two terms of the binomial factor with the same sign as either the sum or the difference of two cubes. Step number 3. Take the squares of the first and last terms of the binomial factor for the first and last terms of the trinomial factor. So we need to take the squares of the first and last terms of the binomial factor for the first and last terms of the trinomial factor. So, step number 4. Take the product of the first and last terms of the binomial factor with an opposite sign of either the sum or the difference of the two cubes for the middle term of the trinomial factor. Thus, x cubed plus y cubed is equal to the quantity of x plus y multiplied to the quantity of x squared minus xy plus y cubed. Or it could be x cubed minus y cubed is equal to the quantity of x minus y times the quantity of x squared plus xy plus y squared. So this is for the difference. This is for the difference. And this is for the sum. Basta sum ang given, mao ni imong i-follow. And if difference, this one, you will follow this. So let's apply those in example number 1. So let's have example number 1. Factor 8x cubed plus 64y cubed. Now, step number 1, extract the cube roots of the first and last term. So, ang first term, this is our first term. And this is our last term. Since duha raman sila, klaro na kay kinsay first and last. Okay. So, we need to extract the cube roots. So, the cube root of 8x cubed is equal to, what is the cube root of 8? The cube root of 8 is 2. Why? Anong 2 man? When you multiply 2 to itself 3 times, that is equal to 8. 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2, that is 8. So the answer is 8. That is why 2 is the cube root of 8. Now, how about our variable x cubed? Now, in extracting the cube roots of variables, you just need to subtract the exponents. So, that is x. Let me rewrite that one. That's x. The exponent is 3 minus our 3 here. So that becomes 2x. Now, this is the cube root of the first term. The next one is you are going to get the cube root of the last term, which is 64y cubed. Now, in 64y cubed, you are going to, same with 8x squared, 8x cubed rather, parehas sa ibabaw. Pangitaon po na to ang number nga kung i-multiply na to 3 times sa iyang self, 64 ang answer. And since this is very common, the cube root of 64 is 4. When you multiply 4 times 4, that is 16. And when you multiply 16 to 4 again, that results to 64. So the cube root of 64 is 4. And for the variable y, that is 3 minus 3, that is 4y. So this is, so 4y is the cube root of the last term. Okay, now example number 1, this is the example for the sum of 2 cubes. So since this is an example for sum of 2 cubes, we will follow this one. So after getting the cube roots of the first and last terms, we are going to write this. So we have here, copy the example, 8x cubed plus 64y cubed is equal to, follow the sign sa atong formula. So we have here positive since this is the sum of 2 cubes. Now, the cube root of 8x cubed is 2x, so we write 2x here. And the cube root of 64y cubed is 4y. So dira pud si 4y. Next is to connect the two terms of the binomial factor with the same sign as either the sum or the difference of 2 cubes. Now, take the squares of the first and last terms. So, kuhaon daw na to ang squares sa first and last term of the binomial factor. So, diri na punta ni 2x and 4y. So, kuhaon na to ang squares. How will we look for the squares? We multiply the factors to itself. So, 2x times 2x, that is 4x squared. 4y times 4y, that is 16y squared. This is for step number 3. Okay. For the first and last terms of the trinomial factor, this is what we call the trinomial factor. So, isulat na nato siya. Again, the signs here. Be careful. You copy the signs and the last is positive. So, our first term here is 4x. Kay mao man ni ang first term sa atong binomial. So, we copy 4x squared. And our last term is 16y squared because siya ang last term sa atong binomial factor. So, dira, isulat na to si 16y squared. Now, take the product. Step number 4. Take the product of the first and last terms of the binomial factor. So, i-multiply daw nato si 2x and 4y with an opposite sign of either the sum and difference of 2 cubes. So, multiply daw nato si 2x and 4y. So, dari 2x times 4y. Hinahanglan nato siyang i-multiply. Ito sa ning limpyuhan kay para maklaro ang answer. Okay. 2x plus 4y. Again, copy. So that is 2x plus 4y times 4x squared. Copy lang. And we multiply this one. 2, you copy the sign. 2 times 4, that is 8. X times y, that is xy. plus you copy also the last term, 16y squared. And after that, this is our final answer. Ano kadali? So, muna na itong answer as factors of 8x cubed plus 64y cubed. So, mao ni ang factors kani sila. Let me write it properly para dili maglipog. So, ang factors ni 8x cubed plus 64y cubed is equal to 2x plus 4y times the quantity of 4x squared minus 8xy plus 16y squared. Ang key lang jud ani para dili masayop sa signs is to follow this formula nga gihatag. Now, let's clean this area para maklaro ang signs. Here. Okay. Now, let's go back. Let's proceed to, let's have this in red para maklaro na this is our final answer. Final answer. Now, let's have example number 2. Factor 2x cubed. No, this is not 2x cubed. 27x cubed minus 125y cubed. Step 1. Step 1, get the cube root of the first and last term. So, cube root ni first and last term. The cube root of 27x cubed is equal to 3x. Why? 3 times 3 times 3. 3 times 3, that is 9 times 3, that is 27. So, therefore, the cube root of 27 is 3. And also, the variable x, minus lang ang exponent, and the radical sign, which is 3. So, ang nabilin is x. This is not minus, di ay tuod. I'm so sorry for the misinformation. This is divide. You divide 3 divided by 3, that is 1. So, x raised to 1. Okay, if i-minus na to, 0. So, that is 1. So, dili pwede. That is division di ay tuod. So, 3 divided by 3, that is 3x. 3 divided by 3, that is 1. We can write that with the exponent 1 or without the exponent. Pwede ra. Now, let's have the cube root of the last term, which is 125y cubed. And the cube root of 125 is 5. And also, the exponents, you divide the exponent 3, you divide it with 3 here. So, that becomes y. So, 3 divided by 3, that is 5y. So, this is the cube root of the first term. 5y is the cube root of the second term. Okay, step number 2. We are going to, now let's identify this pala. This one is what we call the difference of cubes. So, ato i-follow nga formula is this one. So, we copy 27x cubed minus 125y cubed is equal to, what are the signs? So, for the binomial, it's minus. And for the trinomial, it's all positive. Okay. Now, since we have the cube roots, we write it here. 3x minus 5y. And after that, we need to get the squares of the first and last terms of our binomial factor. So 3x times 3x for the first term, that is 9x squared, and 5y times 5y, that is 25y squared, and this is for the last term. So 9x squared, we write 9x squared here, and we write 25y squared here. Unsa isulat diri sa middle term? Simple. I-multiply si first, i-multiply si first here and the last term of our binomial factor. So 3x times 5y. So dira siya. That's not plus. 3x times 5y. Okay, let's clean this muna. So, our answer here is 3x minus 5y times 9x squared plus 3x times 5y, 3 times 5, that is 15. Multiply the variables, that is xy plus 25y squared. And this is now our final answer. These are the factors of 27. Malimtan magid si 7. So this is 27x cubed minus 125y cubed. And this is correct. Ang key ra jud is i-follow ang kani. Okay, now let's have example number 3. Para klaro pa jud, let's have another example. Need to factor x cubed plus 216 y raised to 6. Okay. Step 1, get the cube roots. So the cube root of x cubed is x. And the last term, the cube root of 216 y raised to 6. So what you will do, you look for the cube root of 216. Now in this case, the cube root of 216 is 6 times 6 times 6. We multiply 6 times 6. Now let's get the calculator para madali ta. 6 times 6 times 6, that is 216. So the cube root of 216 is 6. While the cube root of y raised to 6, we need to divide the exponent 6 to our root, which is 3. So 6y, 6 divided by 3, that is 2. So this is the cube root of the last term. And our x here is the cube root of the first term. Now, since we have the cube roots of the first and last terms, we are going to set up the factors. So, i-copy sa nato siya. X cube ang given. This is 2x cube plus 216 y raised to 6. Now, this is what we call kaning ato ang given is the sum of cubes. So, ang atong i-follow nga formula is the first one kani. X cube plus y cube is equal to, this is positive and negative and positive. So, those are the signs. So, mani akong positive eh. Okay. Now, since we have the cube roots of the first and last terms, you are going to write x and 6y squared. After, si x, atong ipangitaon ang squares by multiplying to itself. So, that is x squared. Si x squared, isulat dari. Sulat atong tarong. Pero di mo maglibog. X squared. Now, si 6y squared, i-multiply sa nato sa iyang self. Kaduha to get the squares. 6 times 6, that's 36. Y times y. You add the exponents. 2 plus 2, that is 4. So, si 36y raised to 4, isulat dere. And the middle term, i-multiply ang duha. That is x times 6y squared. Okay. Before we continue, limpyuhan sa. Para maklaro. Para maklaro lang siya. So, this is x plus 6y squared. Okay. Let's continue. This is x cubed plus 216y raised to 6. That is x plus 6y squared times the quantity of x squared minus x times 6y squared. That becomes 6xy squared plus 36y raised to 4. And this is now our final answer. Okay, that's all for today. For the lesson, factoring the sum and difference of two cubes.